Welcome back, everybody, to the Giant Bay podcast. The podcast for everything Giants related. That is news, updates, trades, rumors, signings, everything San Francisco Giants. I am joined by my co-host. How's it going today?
It's going pretty good, man. How have you been today?
It's going all right. I'm excited to get this show underway. It's been very exciting from last night of us deciding to do it to today of us finally recording the first episode. But yeah, so as I said, this is a new podcast. It's on the San Francisco Giants, and we are going to be covering just Giants news and scores and everything with baseball back. Scores are definitely going to be something to keep up on, especially with a stacked division like the Giants are in.
Mm-hmm.
But you can find us. We do have an Instagram. You can find us over there at the Giant Bay Podcast, and on YouTube at Giant Bay Podcast will also be available on Spotify right away, and Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts will be available in the near future, so that will be exciting. So for this episode, we are going to be going over a couple of signings. The Jock Peterson signing, the Carlos Rodon signing, the Matthew Boyd signing. We might explain a little bit of the Chris Bryant deal with the Rockies, because, to be honest, it's sad that he's leaving, but for how much money he got, it kind of is good for the Giants because they get to save money. But we're also going to talk about spring training and the expanded playoffs. So, are you ready to get started?
Let's do it, man. I'm very excited to start this.
Alright, so the Jock Peterson signing. So he signed 1 year, $6 million. He used to be on the Braves and then the Cubs after he left the Dodgers at the end of 2020. And I think he adds a little bit more outfield depth to the team. I don't think he's going to be the star that he once was in Los Angeles, but I think that he's not gonna be the worst signing. I mean, if you look at his numbers last year, little bit low on the home runs, not even 20. He got 18. He batted .238, so the average is a little bit low, but I think going into San Francisco with the right field wall being closer, and I think he'll hit for a little bit more power.
Yeah, that is.
I think he'll be better for the Giants. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Jock Peterson signing is definitely a big piece. And he's going to be a good utility guy for the Giants. I mean, yes, we did lose on the Chris Bryant utility, but like you said, we gained some money because his contract was pretty hefty. But thank goodness that Chris Bryant did sign with the Rockies, and we got Peterson for a really, really cheap deal. 1 year, $6 million for a guy like Jock Peterson. That's a heck of a good signing, and definitely a great bat added to this Giants lineup with Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford, Longoria. You also got Lamont Wade Jr., who was a breakout star last season. And also you got Yastrzemski. He's just going to be a great asset to the lineup. So this is definitely I'd say this pickup is definitely a W for the Giants.
You also have to think about his experience in the clubhouse. Like, this dude has won a World Series. He's won two. He's won one with the Dodgers in 2020. He's won one with the Braves last year. You also have to think he did really, really well for the Braves down the stretch and into the playoffs. So his success in the playoffs and his experience is going to be what we need, because if we're going to use these expanded playoffs to our advantage, because I think we're going to be running for a wild card spot. I think we're still in the running for it. But his experience added into an already experienced team with Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt. Like you said, those two already have playoff experience with the Giants. So I think if we do make it into the playoffs, I think Peterson's leadership is going to help out the team a lot. And like you said, with the low payroll that we're giving him, I think it's a good signing.
Yeah. And also, you got to think about the abilities and also the young talents that are here in the Giants roster. I think Peterson, being one of the older guys on the roster now, is definitely going to give those young guys more training and a bit of more experience to help the younger guys develop a bit to the level that the Giants definitely need. And hopefully they can step up this season against the Dodgers.
For sure. I'd love to think that, definitely. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that is the first, not like big, like the big three signings that the Giants have had post lockout, and well, just the whole off season in general. It has been a strange off season to say the least. Moving on to our next one, Carlos Rodon. I feel like this one was a signing to not only add more starting pitching depth, but probably to replace Kevin Gausman's departure. Because you gotta think, Carlos Rodon, he didn't do that bad last season. He actually had a 2.37 ERA in 24 games with the Chicago White Sox. So I think like that's better than Kevin Gausman's last year. And he only has one less win. And when you add in 185 strikeouts, he's not going to strike out as much as Gausman did. But in a pitcher-friendly ballpark, it's not really going to matter.
I mean, yeah, but this is definitely a great, pickup for the Giants, like as well. Carlos Rodon for 2 years, $44 million. I think the reason why these signings were here is because Gosman and Bryant left San Francisco, and that gave San Francisco a lot of money to work with. And I feel like maybe they can get maybe one more either hitter or pitcher to sign for a low contract. Then I think the Giants are on pace, to be one of the better teams in this season. I mean, last year they were totally unexpected to win 107 games last year, but who knows how many they'll get this year. I mean, yes, we did lose two superstar pieces, but we gained a couple assets to this rotation, and Carlos Rodon being one of the top three, or maybe not even top three, maybe the top starting pitcher in the free agency that was this year is definitely huge for the Giants. That's totally unexpected for San Francisco, and us Giants fans definitely are happy that Rodon came to San Francisco.
And he was very confident in his interview when he joined the team. He joined because he thought he could win here, and that's very confident, and that's what we like to see. If our players are going to have confidence in the success of the team, that means they're going to perform better. They're going to make the clubhouse energy better, and that is all going to play into how well we do this season. I like our chances because of that. And so that's basically the Rodon and the Peterson signing. Probably the two best signings of the offseason, just because the outfield depth, the starting pitching depth. And speaking of starting pitchers, we actually added on Matthew Boyd as well. And his contract is very interesting as well, because we signed him for, I think it was like 1 year, and let me check here. 1 year, $2.5 million. And you can get an extra $2.3 million. Or, sorry, his contract was $5.2 million. He can get an extra $2.3 million in performance. So, again, a low payroll for a 1 year contract. And a lot of people are saying, and I totally agree, this is a low risk, high ceiling deal, because
low risk, high reward is, I think, where you're trying to go with this.
Yes, and because if you think about his time with the Tigers, he had a very he showed some signs of being good at times, and then he showed some signs of just being average. So hopefully the 1 year he breaks out, maybe we re-sign him after that 1 year. But this is just, like you said, a low risk, high reward. If he does well, then you could probably say the Giants re-sign him. If he doesn't do well, that's okay. He's only here for 1 year. You could trade him off at the deadline if you want to.
Yeah, and I mean, based off what you said, this is definitely a honestly sneaky signing for the Giants. Thank you, English. But he's currently on the injury list right now and won't be able to pitch until June because of his injury that occurred last season.
Yeah.
But if he does well in June, then the Giants could possibly sign one of the most underrated pitchers, in my opinion, in the MLB. Matthew Boyd, sure, he didn't have the greatest of seasons, but there's always this season he can bounce back. And I feel like Matthew Boyd this season is definitely going to have a bounce back season. I mean, his numbers last year were, like an average.
Yeah, in 2021 he had a 3.09 ERA in 15 games. Those 15 games, you see the low number of games. It is because he did get injured halfway through the year, like you said. And 67 strikeouts in 15 games is not too bad. But the record, you do see the ERA, and that's pretty good. The record does make you question, but you can't really focus on record too much, especially when he was on the team like the Tigers. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Tigers have gotten better, but they're still not in contention just yet. So the low record shouldn't make you question too much if you see the ERA being under 4, which is good for Boyd.
I mean, that's still below a 4 ERA is considered an average pitcher. I mean, people are saying, "Oh, he had a 3.89. He's not good." Give Matthew Boyd a chance to prove himself well. He had a 3.89 ERA in 15 games, as you just mentioned. And also, Carlos Rodon had a 2.37 ERA with 185 strikeouts. But even though we lost one pitcher in Kevin Gausman to the Blue Jays, we gained 2 pitchers for our depth chart. So we're just trying to, get this depth chart going, and we're seeing which pitchers are the best and what guys can we consider the big 5 for our starting rotation in the MLB. I mean, we're going to go through a lot of guys in spring training because you got guys like Logan Webb, Carlos Rodon, Anthony Desclafani, who did not resign, Alex Wood. And also, before the lockout, the Giants signed Alex Cobb to a deal. I think it was 2 years. I can't remember how much the deal was worth. But they also did sign Alex Cobb as well before the lockout happened. And Alex Cobb, he did pitch okay. But I think Alex Cobb would probably be
it was 2 years, $20 million contract for Alex Cobb. That's a good signing because we get 3 starting pitchers. We only lose 1 in Gausman. Yes, Gausman is a Cy Young candidate, but Carlos Rodon is too. And Carlos Rodon had to go against the Twins and the Indians lineup, or now the Guardians lineup last season. And I know Minnesota didn't do as well as we would have liked them to do last season, but their lineup is still really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's lineup is good in any way possible.
I mean, yeah, they're a professional lineup, so you got to think of that too,
Yeah, plus you got to think about the talent on these teams, and also there's been there were rumors about the Seaza Suzuki guy, but unfortunately he did not sign with the Giants. He went to Chicago, so that does kind of suck on our part. But we'll take the signees we can get at this point.
Yes, we will, and we're glad he's not in our division. So Yes, he
No.
is in the National League, and yes, we're gonna have to face the Cubs 6 or 7 times this season. I haven't looked at the full schedule yet for the Giants. We'll go over that in a later episode, maybe for the season preview, which will be later down the road because the season isn't for 3 weeks, and we still have some spring training to talk about. Yeah, we should touch on Alex Cobb. He's been pretty decent over his career, and the $20 million may seem like a lot, but we're paying him $10 million a year, and yes, that is more than what we're giving, what's his name, Matthew Boyd, and you can argue that Matthew Boyd's a better pitcher, but again, Alex Cobb's floor is maybe around a 4 or 5 ERA. That's not as low as Matthew Boyd's floor. I think Boyd's floor is around a 5 or a 6. So I don't like talking about players' floors too much, but you really have to consider that, especially when we're going to be facing teams like the Dodgers and Padres, who are insanely good. And you also have to think about the Rockies and signing Chris Bryant. They're not going to be as good as us this season, for sure, but we're still going to have to look out for Chris Bryant and Charlie Blackmon. I know he's getting older, CJ Cron, all those guys. But if we have Alex Cobb, maybe he's fighting for the 5th spot in the rotation. But they did say, if you look at the CBA agreement, that 9-inning doubleheaders are coming back. And in those, the Giants are definitely going to need a 6th starter. Because if you're playing 2 or 3 doubleheaders a week, you're burning through a bunch of pitching.
Yeah, you're definitely burning through 4 to 5 pitchers, maybe even 6 a day or doubleheader. So you're definitely going to have pitchers that are going to be valuable to your team. And some teams didn't really look into that, You got teams that focus on hitting, you got teams that focus on pitching, you got teams that focus on one guy, which they got or didn't get. You got teams that don't know what the heck they're doing. So, the teams are all over the place right now, but I think the Giants, their main asset was pitching, and that's definitely what they got in this offseason.
Totally agree on that as well. So that is basically the deals that we got. You can see I have their baseball references up on the screen real quick, just showing the people who are watching or listening on YouTube. You can see Jock Peterson's, Carlos Rodon, and Matthew Boyd. But we're going to move on to our next topic, which is, we touched on Chris Bryant signing. I think we should talk about some spring training, because at the time we're recording this, the Giants are playing spring training tomorrow. They play their first spring training game tomorrow. And I'm going to pull up the schedule on the screen right now. They play, let's see, I'm pretty sure they were playing the Cubs at 7 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central, or 9:05, 10:05. Keep on forgetting that they always do the 05s. But if you look at the Giants' schedule, we don't have a lot of games against the Dodgers in spring training. I'm looking at the March schedule. No, I will not get that right now. April. Yeah, so we only have one game against the Dodgers. And we have some games against the Padres. But most of our spring training games, the good teams that we're going to be facing will, like, the teams that, we're going to be rivaling in the regular season, it's probably the Brewers, the White Sox, even though they're not in our division or league, the Padres, and the Dodgers, of what I can see. So we're going to get to see how we match up against other National League opponents and some other American League opponents like the Royals and Angels, and I said the White Sox as well, and the Guardians. So we're going to get to see our team in action tomorrow. Make sure to follow on the Instagram so you guys can stay updated with the scores. I'll be updating the stories as much as possible for the first game. But yeah, so we're about to be playing tomorrow our first spring training game. I mean, what do you think? How do you think spring training is gonna go?
I think this is spring training, so anything can happen really. But I think we're gonna do okay at spring training. But spring training does not matter. What matters is the regular season. And to me, if we do well in spring training, we could do pretty well in the regular season. Because last year was unexpected for regular season purposes. I mean, the Giants were the best team in baseball, and they didn't even have a super team. They were a team that was expected to go at least 500, around 85 games or so, and we went above and beyond with 107. So anything could happen in the sport of baseball. Some teams do bad in spring training. They do good in the regular season. They do good in spring training. They do bad in the regular season. So who knows? Maybe the Giants can do pretty okay in spring training, but the regular season is what my attention is toward.
And also to make a note, Logan Webb is going to be starting the first game of spring training against the Cubs. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. His spring training stats are ridiculous. Like, he has a 1.13 ERA in spring training. And then last year in spring training, like you said, spring training doesn't really matter, obviously. But last year in spring training, he had an ERA below 1. So it seems to me he likes pitching in the spring. So we're gonna have to see if he can repeat what he did. I think if he has a good spring like he did last year, I think he's gonna have another good year. If you see his ERA start to go up and he's not finding his command, maybe he has a little bit of difficulties, but as Giants fans, we hope that he is going to have another good season, because I think him, Rodon, and Disclafani, I think Alex Wood maybe in the conversation. Those four are going to be in the conversation for top 3, top 2 in the rotation. And then you have Matthew Boyd and Alex Cobb fighting for the last couple of spots. But for spring training, I just like the team going in. I think, like you said, from our off-season additions, I think spring training is going to be a real test to see how well we can do against other teams in our division and our league.
Yeah. But we are going to have some big competition with Dodgers. And, the Padres, they lost a superstar, so we'll see how the Padres can do.
Yeah,
but
didn't Fernando Tatis get into an accident? Is that what I heard?
I think it broke his right shoulder or something like that. So it's out for 3 months or something.
Yeah, I heard it was like his shoulder and his wrist and stuff. So he's going to be out for a little bit. Which is, I mean, sorry to hear that if you're a Padres fan, or Tatis. Hopefully he gets better soon. But if you think of it as a baseball and business standpoint, we're not going to have to face him for the first month of the season or first week or so. And if I look back at the schedule, look at April, we play the Padres we play them second week of the season. Well, first full week. We start off the season at home against the Marlins. And then the second series we have at home against the Padres. So, and that's the only series we have against them that month. So, the first series of the season against them, they're probably not going to have Tatis, which is a big piece in their lineup. That's the core of their team right there. So yeah, that would make a difference. I mean, it definitely would make their lineup a little bit less scary.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And I mean, if you look at it from a standpoint, the Padres they fell off in the 2021 season after they predicted as a wildcard team. They went from second to third or fourth in the division last year. So the Padres could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
Say so myself.
Yeah. I know, right? Like, nobody expected him to fall off like that, especially because of the first half that they had with Tatis being the superstar he was. He was on the cover of MLB The Show. Like, everything was going right for him in the first half, and then he just got injured like 7 times, and the Padres just couldn't win. They even had to switch him to center field at some points because his defense was just too bad at shortstop.
Yeah, this is definitely probably a thing in the MLB The Show curse.
I know. Like, if you think about it, I think back to almost like 2015 when Yasiel Puig was on the cover. 2015 or 2014, he had one of the best like rookie seasons ever. 2015, he was still good, but not nearly as good as he was in 2014. And 2016, Josh Donaldson, MVP the last season, 2015. Yes, he still had a good season in 2016. Still hit like 38 home runs, but again, he wasn't the MVP that he once was. And then 2017 didn't count because it was Griffey, and that was a legend, and I'm not going to diss him at all. And then 2018, this is when things start getting even more like Judge. 2017, 52 home runs, breaks Mark McGwire's single-season home run record. And then 2018, terrible compared to the last season. Terrible. 2019, Bryce Harper's on the cover. And I can relate to Donaldson. He still had a pretty good season his first year with the Phillies. But again, not as good as he once was. And then, like I said, MLB The Show 20, with Baez. The year before, 2019, breakout season. 2020, terrible. Struck out way too many times. Just wasn't himself. And then you move on to 2021. Tatis has a great 2020, leads the Padres into the playoffs for the first time in I don't know how long. And then he goes into 2021, and yes, he still has a great first half, but then when he gets into the second half, and yes, injuries hurted him, but his defense sucked, his hitting was not very good in the second half, and the Padres kind of flopped. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. I hope it doesn't happen with Shohei Ohtani. I hope he continues what he's doing.
I mean, he won MVP in the AL this past season.
I know.
For a two-way player, too. And actually, let's say, now that you mentioned Bryce Harper, he was on the cover 2 years ago. 3 years ago at this point.
Yep.
And after 3 seasons, he bounced back and won the NL MVP.
Yeah, and Judge is on the break of another bounce back year. I mean, he looks pretty good in spring training. I was looking at some videos in Yankees camp, and they're looking pretty good, especially with Josh Donaldson now. Let's go ahead and talk about the last topic of the episode. I can't believe we're already there. But let's talk about the expanded playoffs. What do you think about going from 10 teams to 12?
You know, it's really complicated. I'd say, honestly, I'm just going to keep this short and sweet. Stick with what was working. A bunch of 6 teams per league isn't like not right. 5 was enough per league. You had the 3, division winners, and then the 2 best teams facing in the wild card 1-on-1 in a 1-game series. Winner goes. The only problem I had with the previous one, make the wild card a 3-game series instead of just a 1 game.
I feel like MLB has mixed feelings about that because the wild card game always brings so much hype. Like, if you think about it, the Giants, they've been a wild card team and won the World Series. If you think about back in 2014, when they shut out the Pirates in Madison Bumgarner's brilliant performance, and obviously you had Brandon Crawford's grand slam. But if you think about it, yes, I agree with you. I do think they should make 3-game series. It adds more playoff games, and also I think the MLB owners would like it because we know this from being baseball fans all our lives. We know that the MLB owners, all they want is money. They don't care about how good players are doing. They don't care how much injuries they're having. They just want money. They just want TV sales and revenue. They want any revenue they can get, and they want any exposure they can get so they can earn more. And the playoffs, obviously, for any league, is what's going to make you the most revenue, because that's when all the fans start watching. I mean, there's nothing like watching a playoff baseball game.
Yeah, that is definitely a true statement. But you got to think about, like, all the other things, too, like, the fan reaction and the players. And it's just, in 2014, everyone was on the edge of their seat in Game 7 of the World Series because it was so nerve-wracking for us Giants fans and Royals fans, too.
Oh, I know. And for the Royals, they got back their World Series the next year, so they shouldn't be mad at all. They played a great series against us. I mean, to be honest, if we didn't have Madison Bumgarner in the bullpen ready on 2 days rest, then maybe that series goes something else. Maybe the Royals do come back. Maybe they do win. Maybe Salvador Perez, with 2 outs in the 9th inning, Alex Gordon on third base, hits a walk-off home run to win the World Series.
You never know. There's always the what-if scenarios, though.
I know, especially with Game 7s. But I think we should talk about how this is going to impact the Giants, because, I mean, this is a Giants podcast. We do talk about the Giants. I think last season it wouldn't have mattered. Obviously, we were the best team in the National League, record-wise, I'm pretty sure, because if you think about it, the Brewers won the Central last, the Braves only had 88 wins. I mean, that's just ridiculous when you look at our division, and then you look at the American League East, they had 4 teams over 90 wins. We were the best team in the National League. Obviously, the Dodgers were the second best, but we were the best. Obviously, that year, it wouldn't have mattered. We would have got a first-round bye, and we would have been into the, I don't know what they're calling it, the second round? But this season, I feel like, with the Dodgers getting better, and the Padres probably going to have a bounce-back year, the Rockies are going to be, The D-backs, we don't need to worry about them. They're not going to be competitive for another 2 years, at least. Sorry, Diamondbacks fans. But the thing with this is that we have another chance, and it doesn't really matter if we come in as the 6th seed. We're still gonna have a chance. We face the number 1 seed, probably gonna be the Dodgers. We can beat the Dodgers. It's fine. We've beat them before.
Yeah, we totally beat them before. And I think the Giants are gonna do better than the Dodgers this season. I mean, we signed a bunch of guys. The Dodgers re-signed Kershaw and Bellinger, but they only gained 1 guy, and that was Freddie Freeman. We gained Matthew Boyd, Alex Cobb, Jock Peterson, and Carlos Rodon. So that's 4-1. So the Giants technically got the better of the offseason than the Dodgers did.
I mean, I think so. I mean, the Dodgers, Freddie Freeman, you're going to look at that and say, yeah, best offseason, they signed the best player. They signed 1 player, okay? Freddie Freeman can't do everything. I mean, yes, he can do everything with the bat, but he can't pitch. He's not Ohtani.
No, he's not at all.
So, I mean, That's my thought. I think the playoff races are going to be the same. I think you eliminate the pressure, but then you also add in more teams that are in the race. So, like, I can relate to the National League. You would probably add the Reds would be still in it, not the Padres because they kind of flopped and they were just out of it. Maybe the Mets were still in it, but I don't know.
I mean, you never know. In baseball, anything could happen.
It sure can. Well, that's gonna do it. I think there's no viewer questions for this episode, but if you guys have any and you want them answered in the next episode, you can feel free to put them in the comments or DM us, whatever you need to do to get your questions answered. But that's going to do it. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to give us a 5-star rating or whatever you have to do. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube, and we'll see you in episode number 2. Anything else you would like to say?
No, I mean, thank you guys for coming to listen to this podcast. I'm very excited to be co-hosting alongside you, and I'm very excited to talk about things that happened in the 2022 season, and I'm excited that baseball is back. Let's get it on. Play ball, everybody.
Sure, see you guys later.